Okay, folks, we have some breaking news out of a London, Ontario courthouse. A 79-year-old woman has been sentenced after being convicted earlier this year for criminal negligence. The retired teacher drove her car into a group of Girl Guides, killing one of them and injuring 7 others. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick is following the case and joins us now. Megan, tell us about the sentence.
Well, Petronella McNorgan will not be going to prison as part of her sentence. She has been sentenced to 2 years less a day of house arrest. So she will be serving this sentence in her home, and she will not be permitted to leave her home except under limited circumstances, including medical appointments, for example. So it will be 2 years less a day of house arrest, followed by 3 years of probation. And the judge in this case, Justice Pamela Hebner, saying as part of her sentence that McNorgan will not be allowed to drive during that 3-year probation period. So for a total of 5 years, she will not be permitted to drive. The judge saying that's as far as she can go in terms of prohibiting her from driving. At that point, McNorgan would be 84 years old. She's 79 years old now. She was 76 years old when this happened. The justice did say, though, she thinks that McNorgan should never be allowed to drive ever again, but she's prohibiting her from driving for as long as she can within the restrictions of the law permitted to her under sentencing. So no jail time, which is what the Crown had asked for, Natasha. The Crown wanted McNorgan to go to prison for 4 years. Her defense lawyer had argued at the sentencing hearing that she should not be in custody and that she should be given a probationary sentence, essentially. And this was the sentence for 8 convictions. McNorgan was found guilty of 1 count of criminal negligence causing death and 7 counts of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. The trial was in April before a jury. Those were the decisions they reached. And then the sentencing hearing was in June, where the Crown and the defense lawyer made their submissions for sentencing. Victim impact statements were read, and McNorgan herself read a statement. In her reasons for judgment this morning, Justice Hebner referenced some of those victim impact statements that were read by the parents of the little girl who died. There's a publication ban in place, so we can't identify the little girl. Those were obviously, as you might expect, very emotional victim impact statements. The judge called them heartbreaking. And court also heard from some of the victims who were injured in the crash and about their life-altering injuries and the impact on them, both physically and emotionally and mentally as well. She also referenced that statement that McNorgan had read during the sentencing hearing, in which she apologized to the parents of the little girl and the other victims. But the judge saying today that while that apology sounded heartfelt, she says there was something missing from it, and there wasn't enough of an acknowledgement from McNorgan, according to the judge, that it was her actions that caused the death of the little girl and the injuries of the other victims. The judge saying that these convictions were not based on McNorgan intentionally hitting the young children. It wasn't an intentionally caused collision, the judge said. But nevertheless, she was the one driving, and she is to blame for the collision, the judge said in her decision. She said she took McNorgan's age into account, her health. She does have cancer right now. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2022. She's a diabetic. She cares for her husband. So the judge saying she took those factors into consideration. At the sentencing hearing, there were also a number of letters submitted on behalf of McNorgan, in support of her, describing her as a loving mother and grandmother. She's a retired teacher. They talked about her dedication to her profession as well. So these were all the factors that the judge was weighing. Ultimately, the decision was not to send her to jail, but again, 2 years less a day of house arrest.
CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick with the breaking news. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.